Welcome back, students. As promised, I told you that the next time we got together, I was going to show you what to do when your yarn kind of falls apart like this. Usually you buy it in a skein, and it looks, similar to this, but it's put together and it has the wrapper on it. But once you start working with your yarn and you're making projects, it starts to fall apart. And don't be intimidated by this. It's not the best way to store your yarn is in these big knots like this. So find the end. We found an end here. The best thing to do when you find that your yarn is starting to fall apart like this is just really keep your yarn loose. You don't want to tighten anything, because the more you tighten, then the stronger the knot is going to be. Now, there have been times that I have worked with yarn like this. I have to tell you, sometimes up to an hour or even more. And if it's worth it, now this yarn is inexpensive, so if it gets into a really big knot and I can't get it out, you can always cut around that knot. So let's say this is too tight, you could cut here, you'd have a little piece of yarn here, and then you can get around your knot. But honestly, if you keep it loose and you don't tighten it too much, then eventually you're going to get your yarn to be unraveled or in a knot, whatever that's called. It'll look nice and neat. Now, the best thing I like to do with yarn when it starts to fall apart like this is to make it into a ball. And a ball is really easy to work with. Now, there's two types of balls. There's one where you can pull the yarn out from the middle, and there's also another one where the yarn goes around the outside of it and you pull from the outside. So I'm going to teach you that one first, because that one's the easiest one to do. And then I'll teach you a little trick for keeping your ball from rolling away from you, because that's always a problem whenever you make your yarn into a ball. So just take your yarn, get a little handful of it here, make a little tail, and really all you're going to do is just wrap that yarn around your fingers. Now, I'm not doing it really, really tight. If you do it really tight, then it's going to stretch your yarn. So just wrap and wrap and wrap and wrap. And this is something fun that you can do while you're sitting in front of the TV, or if you're on a trip, you're in the car or something, you just need something to do with your hands. And once you wrap it around, I don't know, what was that, about 30 or 40 times maybe. So you've got a good amount here. I'm going to take it off of my fingers and just kind of hold it like this. Make sure you've got all of the yarn. Now look, I've got some more tangles here. So just keep it loose. You can kind of fluff it around a little bit too. You probably won't make things worse if you just keep it loose like this. And then, see how I've turned the yarn this way? Now I'm going to start wrapping it here. Notice I'm not making it really, really tight. If you do it tight, it's going to get into a knot, or it could eventually stretch your yarn. See how there's a little bit of a knot there? But as long as I'm not pulling tight on it, it will actually start to fall apart. Now, there have been times, though, that I have found an actual knot that there's no way, it was just too tight. There's no way that it could have gotten undone. So again, you can just clip right around it. It's just yarn, people. Nothing to be afraid of. Now, if you do this as a hobby and you grow to love doing this, and you are doing yarn arts, crochet, knitting, loom knitting, those kinds of things for years and years, and you start getting into some really expensive yarn, then you're going to want to really take good care of it. But this kind of yarn that we're using, this acrylic yarn, is pretty inexpensive. So if you have to clip a little knot out of it, then that is not a big deal. So, see, I'm just sitting here fiddling with it. And I am just kind of making this into a ball. And I'm just turning. Get a little bit more yarn here. See, I'm gonna have to lay this out because this is starting to get a little tight, and you just want to loosen it some. Now, sometimes you can also see how it's like a puzzle. You can figure out where the yarn needs to go. You can kind of run it through a couple of different loops. And be patient. This isn't something that you're going to do quickly, because if you try to do it quickly, it's just going to make even more of a mess. So this is a lesson in patience. All right, see how what I'm doing with the ball here? I'm just kind of scrunching it up, and I am just kind of turning it little bits at a time. See how I'm kind of turning it too? Because you want to make it into a ball, not something that's flat. You want to make it a sphere. And the more you do it, the easier it is to hold. Sometimes I lose my hold of it and it drops and it unrolls some of the yarn, but that's not a big deal. You just pick it back up. I'd suggest not to do this around cats, because cats absolutely love to play with this kind of yarn. And if you've got little bitty bits of yarn that you can make a little ball for your cat to actually play with, that would be fun for them, and then they will stay away from your yarn. But they're just always fascinated with watching people whenever they're doing something with yarn. So just beware. Put the cats in another room, or I've also had dogs pick up yarn and play with it and carry it off into the other room. And that's always quite fun to try and get that away from a dog. So you get the idea. Takes a little bit of time, but the key is keep your yarn loose, keep your fingers loose, shake your shoulders and your head out so that you're not all scrunched up here. Take your time, and eventually you will turn what is known as a yarn barf into a ball that you could actually use. So our next quick lesson, I will show you what to do when you have finished with your ball and you want to start using it to crochet with, and how you can keep it from rolling around, because if you just put it on a flat surface, it's going to roll around and it's going to get away from you. So I'm going to show you a quick trick on how to keep that from rolling away from you. I will see you later. Thanks for watching.